We have 6 Samurai. Yes, this deck steps up to the plate to show us that the world, well, it can still be shocked by what this deck can do. And we have Hero as well? Huh, what an interesting breakdown. Make sure you guys smash the crap out of that subscribe button so you guys don't miss out on more awesome content. So, we fired up True Drake, well, honestly, just True Draco Phoenix. Some True Drake, or True King shenanigans. We have some 6 Samurai stuff going on in here. And I get to see Hero Kid show back up and show the world that, hey, you know, on summon a number of Hero Kids. Interesting choice that we're only playing 2 of these, though. I mean, I don't really think you can fit much more into this deck. Like, this deck, in terms of its capacity, is near max, honestly. So we have triple copies of Fire Flint Lady, triple copies of Grandmaster of the 6 Samurai, 2 copies of good old Hero Kid, 1 copy of Legendary Secret of the 6 Samurai, triple copies of Kageki, triple copies of Kizan, triple copies of Mizuho, and triple copies of Shinai. You gotta love OG original loops. Triple copies of good old Mariame, triple copies of Fuma, 1 copy of Hatsume, only 2 copies of Kizaru, 2 copies of Swappy Frog. Wow, we're getting into some really weird territory here. We have 1 True King of Listogasm, 2 copies of Durandal, 1 copy of Axe of Fools, triple copies of Dark Ruler No More, 1 copy of the Divine Sword Phoenix Blade, 1 copy of Drag Down to the Grave, 1 Dragonic Diagram, 1 Gateway, 1 Living Fossil, 1 Mystic Mine, 1 copy of Rhoda, 1 Set Rotation, triple copies of Shien's Dojo, triple copies of Shien's Smoke Signal, triple copies of Super Polymerization, 1 Terraforming, and triple copies of Evenly Matched. Extra deck down here, we have 1 Mudmud, 1 Garuda, 1 Omega, 1 Baron, 1 Gigantic Sprite, 1 Dugaris, 1 Masquerade, 1 Totally Awesome, 1 Emerald, 2 copies of Sprite Elf, 1 Saruja, 2 copies of the Battle Shogun, and 1 copy of Isolde here, wrapping up really a chunk of card interactions here for this bad boy. Next up here is Hero. Now, I will say this about Hero. The Dark Angel build seems to have become the norm at this point. Your whole interaction point here is you want to make sure that you can pass this card over to your opponent. That way your opponent literally can't play spell cards, alright? It's a little bit cheap. It only works on decks that usually will have higher interaction spell counts within the format. That's not to say that, you know, it's near impossible, but this is going to be like your bread and butter for why you will steal games away from your opponent. So keep that in mind. So we have 1 copy of Dark Angel, 1 copy of Denier, 2 copies of Malicious, 1 Plasma, 1 copy of Honest Neos, 1 Liquid Soldier, 2 copies of Shadow Mist, 2 copies of the Stratman, triple copies of Faris, 1 copy of Increase, 2 copies of good old Vion, wrapping up your monster spells. You got triple Hero Lives, 1 Called by the Grape, triple copies of Forbidden Droplet, 2 copies of Fusion Destiny, triple copies of Mash Change, 1 Miracle Fusion, 2 copies of Poly, 1 Rhoda, triple Super Polymerization, 2 Talents, and triple copies of Rivalry of the Warlords here. Down in the extra deck, we have 1 copy of the Wonder Driver, 1 copy of Dread Decimator, 2 copies of Cross Crusader. No matter how many these hero decks we always tend to look at, Cross Crusader 2 always seems to be the norm. We have 1 Trinity, 1 Dracos Tapelia, 2 copies of Dark Law, 1 copy of Master Hero Blast, 1 Garuda, 1 Sunrise, 1 Escuridao, 1 Absolute Zero, 1 Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer, and 1 Dangerous Lad. Side deck here we have 2 DD Crows, 2 copies of Ghost Ogre, 1 Harpy's Feather Duster, triple Lightning Storm, 2 copies of the old Mystical Mine, 1 Twin Twisters, 2 copies of Dimensional Barrier, and 2 copies of Eradicator Epidemic Virus. Wrapping up your pretty interesting hero take. Honestly, I think there's a lot of room to like improve here with this, but okay, I'll take it. It seems very good. Ye old reliable here. Don't you love the fact that this deck is still projected to be the best deck in the room? Honestly, how tier elements have very much, you know, settled into the format here. We got about 2 rounds of power-ups coming from this deck, so you're going to see, like, maybe what might not be a massively powerhouse deck, but trust me on this. After a little bit of time, you will see why this deck is going to be the crazy monster that it is. So we have 2 copies of Mothman, triple copies of Nessie, 1 Jackalope with 1 Destrudo, 1 Gizmek, 1 copy of the Shadal Beast, triple copies of Happiness, triple copies of Good Old Merle, triple copies of Reno Heart, and triple copies of Shay Rin. And then we have one Called by the Grave, one Foolish Barrel, one Galaxy Cyclone, one Instant Fusion, 2 copies of Pot of Desires, triple copies of Good Old Paralineo because best field spell, triple copies of Super Polymerization, 1 Terraforming, triple copies of Infinite Permanence, 1 Dino Nuggies, and 2 copies of Solic. Down here in the extra deck, you got the 1 Underworld Goddess, 1 Sprite Elf, 1 Nightmare Griffin, 1 to Hark with 1 Curious Friend, 1 Time Thief Redoer, 1 copy of Good Old Baguski, 1 Abyssler, 2 Kitagalos, 1 Kaleido Heart, 1 Draco Stapelia, 1 Mudmud, 1 Garuda, and we're actually playing 1 Winda in here because your 1 of Cheese Interaction to get it out does exist. Side deck here we have triple Gamma with 1 Driver, triple copies of Hadouken, 1 copy Galaxy Cyclone, 1 Arby's Feather Duster, 2 Evenly Matched, 1 Crime, and triple copies of There Can Only Be One. Wrapping up your, I would say, pretty standard list. We were kind of starting to see a little bit of the builds heading towards this point in the format, but this is definitely something that I'm not really surprised to see here. Like, nothing too crazy out here in the open here. Next up is Dinosaurs. This was a list that was posted from testing, and somebody was talking about, you know, in terms of like my results, it ended up working out pretty well. I do like the fact that we're seeing the Sprite Jet package being splashed in other decks. Because all you got to do is just, you know, get to this, and then you get Sprite Jet into Smashers. Like, and then, you know, you can turn your Gigantic Sprite into a Sprite Elf. So you have a lot of, like, really cool niche interactions that you can do just with a splash of 2 cards here, man. Like, you got some pretty readily available level 2s in your deck here that just might end up being bricks at certain points, but they're things you can access. So we have 2 copies of the Animadored Archosaur, triple copies of Baby Sarasaurus, triple copies of Didi Craw. We have 1 Pankratops, 1 Giant Rex, 1 Miscellaneous Sarasaurus, 1 Pterodon, triple copies of the Bricks, triple copies of Yield Oviraptor with 1 Sprite Jet. We have 1 copy of the True King of Disaster, 2 copies of Good Old Ultimate Conductor, 1 Driver with 1 Called by the Grave, triple Dark Ruler No More, 2 copies of the Double Evolution Pill, triple copies of Fossil Dig, triple copies of Lost World, triple Pot of Prosperity. I do think playing this over something like Extrav in this deck, I know there's been an argument in the past to play Extrav, but I think this card filtering for your option trees feels a little bit better. We have 1 Smashers, and we have triple Imperm here. Then in the extra deck, we have 2 copies of Sprite Elf, 1 Secure Gardena, 1 Lambda with 1 Link Rebo. Then we have 1 Good Old Nightmare Unicorn, 1 IP, 1 Access Code, 1 copy of Logos. Yeah, Logos is actually seeing play for this deck. We have 1 Sprite Elf, or 1 Big Sprite, 1 Logia, 1 Dolka, 1 Abyssler, 1 Borreled Savage, and LOL, 1 Blood Mephist, wrapping up the dinosaur tech choices here. Definitely not bad. And the last ones we have here is, yes, we have some Madolche action here. This is basically a going second Madolche list. Do with this info what you will. I still think the Madolche suffers a lot of big issues in today's format. As much as I would like to see this deck, I guess, perform better, you got to find ways to kind of curve out your weaknesses right now. And we're not playing D-Shifter in the main, so ugh. So we have 1 copy of Pankratops, triple copies of Angeli, triple copies of Hoot Hoot Don't Pollute, triple Mageline with the 2 Messengelados, triple copies of the Pudding Susior, 1 copy of Pudding. We have triple copies of Gamma with 1 Driver. Then we have 1 Called by the Grave, triple Cosmic Cyclones, triple copies of Hadouken, 1 Harpy's Feather Duster, 1 Chateau, triple copies of Salon, 1 Ticket, 1 Monster Reborn, 2 Talents. Then we got 2 Grave Digger's Trap Hole. We have triple Imperm, and 2 copies of Good Old Promenade. Down in the extra deck, we got 1 Unrolled Goddess, 1 Fresh Shift Start, 1 Nightmare Phoenix, 1 Access Code, 1 Rafflesia with triple Glass Fillet, triple copies of Tiaramisu, triple copies of Shokla a la mode, and 1 Omega. Side deck here, we got triple copies of Dimension Shifter, triple copies of Space Rock, triple copies of Evenly Matched, 2 copies of Imperial Iron Wall, 2 Royal Decree, and 2 copies of Shadow Imprisoning Mirror here, wrapping up, quite honestly, some very interesting stuff. I will say I'm genuinely impressed by some of these deck ideas. So what do you guys think? Please comment down below, tell me what you guys think, and I'll see your beautiful faces back here later on the day, guys. Peace out. Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.